Hello and welcome back to the Japanaholic podcast, one-man podcast surrounded by topics all about Japan, anime, and games discussed by one certified Japanaholic. I am Taylor Frey, with a little bit of a sore throat today because seasonal allergies are a thing, just like how in today's episode, I kind of want to discuss a little bit about seasonal animes. I'm not going to be talking, I'm going to move my mic here, never mind, I can't move it at all, never mind. I'm not going to talk about like any animes specifically, but I want to talk about the concept in general about seasonal animes. Mainly, the main topic that I wanted to talk about is kind of like the main issues that I have with watching animes every season. And this is kind of like, a first world problem kind of issue for me. Because I know not a lot of people will have these same issues that I'm going to talk about in this episode today. Possibly there's a handful that maybe will probably have a few of the same issues that I talk about today, but this is just something that, you know, as a viewer of anime and as a fan and watcher, and you know, what else can I say about anime? But you get what I'm trying to say. Seasonal anime, at least today, like, is hard because watching seasonal animes nowadays is tough because there's so many shows coming out every single season. Well, not as much as like last year or the year before. In fact, summer 2020 has probably been it's like the lowest in quite some time. I think. I do remember, like, we got like a ton of shows every season back in like 2010. I know that's when it like started, or it was like not really 2010, but like it peaked around 2010 where like it got really noticeable that we were getting like 70 to 80 new shows a season. Most of them were starting to get the 12 episode treatment, but some were also getting like that like 30 episode, 50 episode normal treatment. And 2018 or 2019, it was one of those years, if not both, saw like 70 to 80, possibly 90 new shows every single season. And the point that I'm trying to get across is that try to watch 90 shows in 12 weeks, or at least try to, you know, watch them and stay interested in all of them or whatever, and try not to get burnt out or lose track of the animes that you're watching or that sort of stuff. It's not going to happen. And I obviously know that for the most part, most seasonal watchers usually just end up watching like 5 shows and calling it a season or something like that. And I know a lot of people actually don't even watch the currently airing season. They wait 12 weeks to watch the entire series once it gets done, or gets to like a bingeable approach to it. Kind of like, and I kind of feel the same way, okay? Because I'll say this right now, binging anime is a whole lot better than watching it week by week, because just from experience, binging the entire series of Eurocap to, you know, watching every week the Snafu series, which is like talk about the 3rd season. I love the Snafu series. Don't get me wrong. I freaking love Artagayu, and I love, you know, the climax season so far. I absolutely enjoy it. Like, it's probably one of the best seasons of Artagayu. But anyways, the thing is that I had so far, I'm having more fun. Like, I'm going to say this at least. I had more fun binging Eurocamp than I did watching Origami, because of the fact that watching the 3rd season going week by week by week, when you're only watching 1 episode a week, where you get super interested in these series, but you can only watch maybe 1 new episode a week. you really lose your interest in the series. At least that's what I think, okay? Because as much as I'm interested in the climax season, I'm only interested in it when the newest episode's out, and then as soon as I watch it, it's like, maybe like for a few more hours, I'm like, oh my god, I want to know what happens next, but it's like, well, I'm gonna have to wait another 7 days in order for me to, find out what happens next. And this is an issue throughout the entire seasonal lineup, okay? And that's why a lot of people tend to wait till the next season to watch this stuff from the last season, because about, if they pick about 10 animes, like, from the top 10 that started from that season, about like 8 out of 10 of them will finish by the time the new season rolls around. But there are some times, like ReZero, for instance. ReZero is a special cake in this instance because it's technically not going to go on in fall of 2020. It's going to take a break at the end of fall 2020, and it's going to be that sour patch in a field. I don't know why I use that analogy, but you get what I'm trying to say. In winter 2020, because winter 2020 is stacked with a lot of comfy fucking shows, okay? We got Eurocamp Season 2, Non Biyori Season 3. Oh my god. Oh, winter 2021 is so stacked. I can't wait for that. That'll be the best time to be a seasonal watcher. But then, the issues that I'm talking about today, they're going to be even worse in the winter times, because it's like, oh, I really want to see what happens. I really want to get interested in this, but unless I wait a few weeks and fall behind, I'm not going to be having the most amount of fun watching season 2 of Eurocamp as I did binging the entire first season. Or non Biyori for another instance, binging the entire first season, binging the entire second season, watching the movie, and then going to season 3 where it's like, all right, this specific day for 12 weeks, that's the only time you can watch this series. You can rewatch it, but at the same time, you more than likely want to watch the newest stuff, don't you? Well, you got to wait till 7 days from now, which is annoying. And to those who don't watch the currently airing stuff, okay, I applaud you if you are also that kind of person who goes through Twitter or Reddit or Facebook or just any social media for an hour, okay? Because odds are, if you love anime and you've come across this podcast, you've probably scrolled through anime Twitter or anime Facebook or anime Reddit for hours on end, almost every day, okay? Almost every day. Maybe for a few minutes every other day, but you get what I'm trying to say. Because the issue with scrolling through social media is that there are so many seasonal pages and so many people talking about the currently airing stuff that if you hate spoilers like me, it's a minefield, because especially this is also the instance with mangas that are currently going on that you are still reading, but you don't want to see the spoilers for anything because you obviously don't want to be spoiled anything. Am I that kind of person that says spoilers ruin everything? Yes and no. I say yes because I obviously, if it's a high intensity moment or a moment that, obviously would suck to get spoiled on, like the end game of a rom-com or something like that, for example, yeah, I would hate to be spoiled that, because it's especially even if it is the girl you wanted to win, it's man, I wanted to find out for myself, by actually reading the story, not just reading just an article or a tagline on Twitter or something like that, or a tweet or poster out of the blue, okay? Instead, I wanted to actually find out for myself what happens in the story. But I also say no because it's in situations where it's not really big, or it's not really a big spoiler, because there's I'll say this, there's been memes that I've seen, or not even just memes, but posts that I've seen about I'll say this, for example, this is a thing that have actually happened. I've seen, because I'm in the Nisekoi Facebook page or group or whatever. Not the best thing to do if you haven't read the manga all the way. That, yeah. I've seen way too many spoilers from the manga. But then again, I already know who... I hit my microphone, god damn it. I already know who wins in Isekoi, not because of it being spoiled, but because I already kind of figured it out, just because of the fact that if anybody watches that series, unfortunately, to anybody who's not Kirisaki stan or I'm not even going to try and pronounce how it's usually said, because I can't speak Japanese. But I usually say Kirisaki because I think that's her family name, but you get what I'm trying to say. You know who I'm talking about. Voiced by the greatest Seiyu of all time, now Toyoma. Yeah, I'm that kind of person too. Anyways, what was it? Oh yeah, I already knew who was gonna win, and if anybody has not read the Nisekoi, I'm sorry if I did spoil that. Actually, now that I think about it, son of a bitch. I'm sorry if you have not read Nisekoi or whatever, or at least I'm sorry. If I spoiled it, I'm sorry. I may have accidentally spoiled it for you, but if you've already read it and you already know, then you already know, right? Right? You know what I'm trying to say? Okay, good. But sometimes, spoilers really don't matter if the spoiler isn't that big, okay? It just depends. But what I'm trying to say, to go back on the main topic of seasonal anime, if you are that kind of person who doesn't like to see spoilers on their timeline, dude, it sucks being that kind of person. Because I wish I could count on one hand how many times I've been spoiled stuff just from Twitter. But unfortunately, I'm going to need 5 hands for that, and possibly more. Okay? And it sucks. I hate being spoiled on big anime moments or big manga moments or big story moments. But unfortunately, that's the price that comes to pay when it comes to seasonal animes and stuff like that. Is there really a fix to this? No, because even the most basic Twitter pages or whatever, or tweet about anime or whatever, even if they really don't tweet much about seasonal anime, will tweet about the currently airing seasonal anime every once in a while, every rare chance or two, whether it is just maybe a fan art picture or not. You get what I'm trying to say here. The biggest case that I could say is try to go through Twitter today and try to go maybe 100 or in my case 50 tweets before finding a spoiler of a currently airing show or a currently published manga or whatever that's that you've been currently reading. It's not easy, and obviously there's no way to stop them. I mean, the only way you could really stop the spoilers or whatever is just getting rid of because on Twitter you could block words. Maybe you could block the word spoiler or whatever, spoiler warning, but then you end up blocking a ton of post about cars or something like that when people talk about spoilers, big ass spoilers. But you get what I'm trying to say. It sucks being a seasonal or a non-seasonal watcher, because it's I just want to watch the series, binge it. I want to binge the entire season, but I really don't want to be spoiled at the same time. If you aren't that kind of person, no, God lucky you, okay? Because I know a lot of people who probably just don't care about spoilers, but I know a lot of people who do care a lot about spoilers, and to those who do care a lot about spoilers and don't really watch the shows when they're currently airing, that's the toughest life to ever live, okay? Because I've tried my best to keep up with the currently airing shows, but I've unfortunately fell behind on one show, and I'm sad to say this. I'm sorry to any ReZero fans. I've fallen behind on that show quite a bit. But I still know what happens in the show, because obviously, since it's the biggest show of the season, people are going to spoil the flipping hell out of that series. And I just got spoiled the most gruesome death. It's really? Are you I really wanted to watch that for myself, but I guess now when I see a bunny on the fucking TV screen, I'm like, oh shit, here we go again. But yeah, it's like, I hate being spoiled, especially if it's something pretty big, okay? But also at the same time, being spoiled anything in an anime also sucks as well, but if it's a minor detail, or if it's like a minor spoiler, or like a minor, like, even like a minor nitpick that you didn't notice before, most times it's like, I can let that pass, or I could see that, obviously, but like, for me, I hate being spoiled something huge, okay? And I'm not talking about, like, something like, I'm trying to think of an example here. Something as huge as, like, maybe, like, a quote that a character may say or something like that, like, really triggers something incredible, if like it triggers the next arc or whatever, or some sequence happens that ends up making it the best sequence. Like, as long as the spoiler is not detrimental to the story, what I'm trying to say, then I won't care too much. But if it's like, oh well, this person dies in this episode and you better watch your ass, it's like, well, thanks for letting me know that I gotta watch my ass on this episode, because obviously if I wasn't gonna be spoiled, I was obviously gonna be clutching my ass and tears are gonna roll down. Oh my god. But it goes back to like falling behind, okay? As a seasonal watcher, let me talk about people who are seasonal watchers. The biggest issue that those kinds of people run with are falling behind, okay, on episodes. Because let me tell you, okay, like I said earlier in this episode, I think this season only has 40, no, I think no more than 60, but like it's very low compared to like what it was like last year. But that is also because of the pandemic. I'll give it that. Because of the pandemic, it has been that way. It has been that way. It happens. Shit happens, right? Anyway. Even though there's so little, like, series, I say so little, but there's still so many to watch, but you get what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of shows out there today, but, like, with this season being so tiny in terms of, like, shows, like, the amount of shows, you would think, like, oh, for a seasonal person, I could watch all of these shows easily and get, like, and have a good, maybe 15 to 20 new shows, if not, over half of the shows that I can talk about on a seasonal episode or whatever. Or just in general, just talk about, like, over half of them, because there's, like, a very tiny amount. But even though there's so little in this season, I've still fallen behind on episodes of Uzaki-chan, of Kanashouto Kaishimasu. I've fallen behind on this the Origami series. Now, keep in mind, I've gotten caught up, obviously. The only one that I just haven't gotten my ass caught up with right now is ReZero and Fruits Baskets. Literally 3 out of the 5 that I talked about in that seasonal episode that I talked where I talked about like 5 that I would recommend watching this season. And the biggest issue with being a seasonal watcher is that if you fall behind, you're going to run into those spoilers. And if you are a seasonal watcher, you probably are that kind of person who doesn't like spoilers. But like, I don't want to talk more about spoilers. I've talked so much about them. Oh my god. I've talked so much about spoilers. I think people would think that this is a racing podcast and not a podcast about Japan or anime or games. But bleh. But just being and as well as like running a seasonal account, and I'm talking to like the people who like really go at it with the seasonal stuff. It must be tough running that seasonal account or whatever, and not trying to fall behind because you have to like get pictures or get like certain articles or whatever going for the seasonal anime currently airing. But like if there's so many shows, you fall behind a little bit, you fall behind a lot, okay? It's not so much like, oh, I can catch back up easily. There's so many shows that as soon as you fall behind on one series, you got a whole other like few more animes that are going to be falling behind as well, and then it slowly piles up if you keep losing track of time or whatever. And I know a lot of people will end up watching like a ton of episodes at once because like like I said earlier as well, binging is incredibly better, in my opinion, than watching seasonal stuff because you feel more into the story if you get 6 episodes of the series instead of 1 episode per week. You may be interested in the series longer if you watch it weekly, but at the same time, the level of interest watching it weekly is not the same as when it's maybe your interest is short, but at the same time, you're interested longer in another aspect, if that makes sense. Because here's the thing. If you go on my Twitter page at the Japanaholic1, you'll notice that I am basically a Shimadid / Eurocamp style Twitter account. Because when I binged Eurocamp, I was interested in the series more than I possibly would have if it was weekly. Okay, if I watched it every time a new episode came out, like as soon as the episode came out, watched it, was interested for like the entire 20 minutes, maybe a few hours afterwards, and then not really talk much about it till the next episode, and then once it was done, probably wouldn't really be much of a big fan of it as I am now. But when I binged it, not only was I able to watch the entire season, but get interested in it and kept in every episode the interest of the series rose with it to the point where it's hard for me not to be interested in anything Eurocamp related. And a lot of people can agree with that if they're ever like, if there's a favorite series, whoever's listening to this, whatever's your favorite series, like all time, number 1, 10 out of 10, best anime that you've ever seen, more likely, if it's not a movie, obviously, if it's a TV series, more than likely the reason why it's number 1 on your list is probably because you've watched, maybe binged like half the season or all of the season or maybe like a quarter of the season, but the point still stands that you binged part of the season. Whereas it's tough to get a 10 out of 10 series if you watch it like, 1 episode every Wednesday, or for instance, like 1 episode every like Thursday, or you get what I'm trying to say. And I'll also say this right now, I binged Steins Gate, and I loved the hell out of that because it's like, imagine going through the feelings weekly. Okay, episode 11 hits and shit hits the fan at Steins Gate, and you're like, oh god, I gotta watch the next episode. But you can't watch the next episode because it's 2011. You gotta wait till the next week in order to see what happens next if you're an anime only person and not and you haven't really gotten the visual novel. And yeah, that, I don't know if it was it episode 11 or was it 12. It was one of those two. You get the point I'm trying to make with that series. But speaking of those two series and the fact that they are 10 out of 10, next week I do want to talk about series that I've given 10 out of 10s and talk about why I think that way of the series. And I'll try not to really talk much more about them today because the biggest reason why is because of what I just said like not too long ago. But anyways, it's like, try to keep the same level of interest for 12 straight weeks with like a seasonal anime show that's only airing like 1 episode a week. It's not that easy because it's like, especially if it's only like 1 season. If it's the first season of a show and it only has like 2 episodes out, what can you really like go with as like, as your reasons to why it should be 10 out of 10. outside of the manga or the light novel or visual novel, game, music, blah, whatever source material it may be. Okay? If it's like a season 2 or a season 3, like Origami for this, for instance, okay, in order for you to keep the interest level the same, you could possibly go back and watch the second season or go back to watch the first season, binge it all over again. That is all fine and dandy. But it's hard to, it's hard. Yes. You can have a high level of interest and love the series so much. Okay? But I've seen too many times where there will be seasonal accounts that'll change their theme or their layout style or just, everything in general about like their favorites, quote unquote, their favorites every season. They'll switch to like a brand new show. They'll switch to a brand new character that they call their waifus or something like that, quote unquote waifus. And they'll say like, this is the best anime of all time or something like that. I've seen it so many times where it's gotten to the point where it's like, if they show that is currently air, like let's say if Uzaki can survive to next summer 2021, if I see Uzaki still being on Twitter, if I see people still watching it on Twitter next summer, then I'll say, yeah, maybe that series was actually a really memorable series. Because most of the time, these seasonal shows that a lot of people say are the best animes or they're the most, will be the most, what the hell? I lost the fucking word in my head. Remembered. Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Sorry. The most memorable as well. That's a synonym for it. Most memorable, show of this year. It's 9 times out of 10, some of the animes that they say never make it past like week 3 of the next season. Okay? They'll still talk about it lightly. But as soon as the anime is done and as soon as everybody's gotten, the last piece of the cake and the season finale is done, and most likely the series finale is done, it'll go on for like a few more weeks. It's like, man, you remember this show? That was such a good show. But as soon as it's done, it'll barely be talked about for like the next few years. And the biggest example that I can say from this is the MILF Isekai show, where when it was currently airing, it was quite popular to talk about this series, whether for good reasons or bad reasons. But as soon as summer 2019, I think it was summer 2019 if I remember correctly, as soon as that season ended, it was almost completely forgotten about, to the point where like the only reason why people started talking about it again was because of the Trash Taste podcast, where they mentioned how horrible it was, to the point where it was terribly boring or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember the highlight or whatever. But then again, those are the same people that said Uzaki is boring and Kadozo Karishimasu is good. I love both series, but god fucking damn, lately, okay, Kadozo Karishimasu has been pissing me the fuck off. Not just the anime, but the manga as well, okay? I love the series, don't get me wrong. I love the series, but god damn, this is what it feels like to like the wrong girl in Nisekoi. Just saying. But I'll probably do, and this will probably be the most more one-sided than the Citrus and Blooming to You affair. But I'm going to probably do what the hell was it called? Son of a bitch. Anime showdowns between Nisekoi and Kadojo Karishimasu once Kadojo Karishimasu finishes up its season. Hopefully it gets a second season, because it would be a whole lot easier for me to compare 24 episodes of Nisekoi to 24 episodes of Kadojo Karishimasu. But if I can't get 24 episodes of Kadojo Karishimasu here soon, I may unfortunately have to do a 12 versus 12 of Nisekoi, do a 12 versus 12. Yeah, it's not going to be good. It won't be complete, but anyways, continuing on with, but going off there, getting off that topic before I lose my breath from this sore throat. I hate seasonal allergies. I don't hate seasonal animes because, don't get me wrong, they're incredible, but the amount of shows that we get every single season feels like a ton to take in. And yeah, there's a lot of issues that come with it, but at the same time, I understand, the point of seasonal animes. And as well as, like, the whole reason why, it's like, okay, so I talked about, like, the earlier days, like 2010, where it started getting pretty big when it comes to, like, how many shows we would get in a season. That also is because of the fact that, well, there's a lot of mangas, there's a lot of light novels, there's just a ton of stuff that are coming out today, and as well as, like, so many that have not gotten adapted yet from, like, the 70s on up, that, yeah, making 24 episodes or, like, 50 episodes will probably not make it that interesting. If this, because mainly, and this is, like, not to make, like, a shot to, like, any of these series, but, like, I'll use Blend-S, for example, or I'll use, unfortunately, I have to talk about this series again, Domestic Nakanajo, Itori I really don't want to talk down on this series, because I love Hitoribochi so goddamn much. Okay, it's probably the most, I can remember that show a whole lot, even though nobody else can. And that's pretty, I mean, that was, like, one of the very first, like, seasonal shows that I watched, like, as it was airing. But anyways. But these three series, unfortunately, only got an anime adaptation to advertise their source material. Like, in this instance, for all three mangas. Back then, if the series wasn't popular enough in, like, a magazine or whatever, it really wasn't going to get more than 24 episodes. And 24 episodes back then was like, oh, that's too little of this series. Now it's like, man, 12 episodes. That's not enough, but also enough if it gets a season. It's like, that's not enough. We need a season 2, but at the same time, some series won't get a season 2 because it's like a 12 episode of, like, ads and stuff. It's like, hey, if you want more of this, go buy the fucking mangas. I really want to talk a little bit. Okay, I'll talk more about this next week. I won't talk about it now. So pause that thought, me. But back then there were, like, maybe 30 to 40 shows every season, because of the fact that, for the most part, the new ones that were coming out were getting, like, 24 episodes, or maybe, like, even more than that. Some still got maybe, like, 10 to 12, obviously, but, like, it was mostly, if it was getting an anime adaptation, it was getting several episodes. Okay, I mean several. Like, it was gonna last several months, like, at least 6 months if it went every week. At least 6 months, okay? And, when 2010 happened, I can remember, well, it really didn't happen in 2010, but I say 2010 because that's when it really started picking up, but at the same time, you could notice it back in 2009 as well. But this is where, like, a lot of shows began to go, like, well, maybe let's tone it down. Let's do 12 episodes, but we'll adaptate more series. I feel like this is also because more studios came into play at this time, but that's a whole different reason, I think. But it's like, with 12 episodes, we save time and we save money, and we get possibly the same amount of, like, impressions to the series. And maybe, like, the same amount of, like, interest for, like, otakus to buy the mangas, to buy the source material, or whatever the source material may be. Okay? And some series, depending on how popular the source is, like ReZero, for instance, would get not one season with 24 episodes, but 2 seasons with more than 24 episodes. So, yeah. depending on how popular a series gets, it's still not, it's not rare to see a series get more than 24 episodes. But it's also like not very as common back then to get, a series with more than 24 episodes. And I think the whole point of this is because, the whole point that I'm trying to make here is that there's so many series coming out every season because of the fact that, well, most times it's like a quick little, hey, this series exists. May want to read the manga for this if you end up watching it. Just a thought. But like back then it was like, hey, this was actually pretty popular in terms of like the mangas, but we know that this could possibly make it bigger in the anime scene. But at the same time, if people watch this, they would like to see a lot of this in animation. So 24 episodes, at least 24 episodes. If it goes good, we'll give it another season with higher amount of episodes. That's just my thoughts and opinions on how seasonal anime has been in the past 20 years. Necessarily seasonal anime, if we're talking when it actually started around the 70s, but in the 80s and 90s, where mangas and stuff like that started to get more popular, and as well as Japanese televisions were all like, man, those cartoons that we create that a lot of teenagers like to call anime, they've been getting really popular lately when we do a little bit of airing these kinds of shows like Astro Boy or whatever. When we air these shows, maybe we can insert a little bit more into our programming here, if that's okay with you. And then off and win with seasonal animes. Get maybe 10 or 12 every season, or every few months, to 60 to 80, Jesus Christ, almost 90 for new shows, new series, oh my god, let me tell you, being a seiyuu, it must be really difficult. Let me tell you, holy, especially if you have more than 1 gig a season. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up with seasonal animes while I go recover this seasonal allergy that I got in my freaking throat, because yay me for recording on a sick day. Sorry that you had to listen to a more nasally Taylor. But yeah, if you want to submit any topics, questions, stories, comments, or concerns, I don't know why I say concerns, but you go to try to say, email the podcast, JapanHolicPC@gmail.com. Follow the Twitter page, like I said before, at the Japanaholic1, and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not already, the Japanaholic channel. Anyways, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in to the Japanaholic podcast. I will be back next week to do it all over again with the topic I've already talked about a little bit today, and I've talked about what it will be next week. I'll talk about more about that next week, next Wednesday in the morning, at least on the Eastern time zone. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. I'm Taylor, the certified Japanaholic, signing off. Good night.